Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, forensic historical audit of one of America's absolute most famous figures, Charles Lindbergh. We're going to peel back that whole 1920s noir myth of the heroic aviator to reveal a very, very different blueprint that's laid out in our source material. This document presents what it calls a gnostic indictment. Basically, it's an alternative history suggesting that the public narrative of Lindbergh is actually a carefully constructed facade for a much deeper, highly classified agenda.
Okay, let's jump right into the core mystery presented by the source text, which basically asks us to question everything we thought we knew about this American icon. I mean, we all know the story of the lone eagle, right? The brave pioneer of early aviation. But the text proposes a radical reevaluation. Was Charles Lindbergh actually a deeply embedded intelligence asset for a shadow government? Let's look at the evidence the source compiles to support this honestly staggering claim.
The source outlines this Gnostic indictment by completely reframing his famous 1927 flight across the Atlantic. Now, to the public, it was the ultimate act of heroism and human endurance. But according to the audit we're looking at today, that flight was merely an operational audition. It was a test. And by passing it and achieving global fame, the text claims Lindbergh was permanently absorbed into the highest, most highly classified echelons of the emerging military-industrial complex.
Act 1. Gatekeeper of Early Rocketry. Let's wind the clock back to 1929. This is where his unacknowledged career allegedly begins to take shape, far, far away from the flashing cameras of the press. Decades before the CIA even existed, the source claims Lindbergh was already managing the physics of the future. He recognized the terrifying military potential in the heavily mocked work of Dr. Robert H. Goddard, the father of modern liquid-fueled rocketry. Using his immense influence, Lindbergh personally approached industrialist Daniel Guggenheim and secured a $100,000 grant. To put that into perspective, that's roughly $1.8 million today. And that money was used to quietly fund Goddard's research in Roswell, New Mexico. He argues he did this because whoever controlled Goddard's patents essentially controlled the future of orbital spaceflight and intercontinental ballistics. According to the audit, Lindbergh managed the logistics to ensure these specific foundational patents, like the 1914 rocket apparatus and the subsequent multi-stage designs, remained under strict, classified, monopolistic control by the American elite. So he wasn't just a philanthropist here, he was a gatekeeper. And this wasn't just about building slightly faster airplanes. He was locking down the thrust equation, the literal mathematical formula required to break Earth's gravity. By securing Goddard's work, the source asserts that Lindbergh ensured this exact physical math was captured and controlled by a shadow syndicate right from the very beginning. So, the crucial point the source claims here is that Lindbergh was laying the groundwork for a highly classified aerospace syndicate long before modern intelligence agencies were officially formed. He was not just some bystander watching aviation history unfold. He was the primary logistics manager ensuring that the true cutting edge of aerospace technology was funneled directly into what the text refers to as the black budget. Act 2. The Shadow Diplomat. As we shift gears into the 1930s, the explainer details Lindbergh's darkest operational deployment. We're moving from the deserts of New Mexico straight into the heart of pre-war Europe, where Lindbergh allegedly operated as a high-level observer inside Nazi Germany. Acting as a de facto asset for the U.S. military attaché in Berlin, Lindbergh was granted unprecedented, highly classified access to the absolute bleeding edge of the Nazi war machine by Hermann Göring himself. Lindbergh personally flew the Bf-109 fighter. He inspected the Junkers factories, reported back to U.S. Army intelligence that German aviation was technologically superior to anything the U.S. currently possessed. Across multiple extended trips leading up to 1939, Lindbergh deeply embedded himself in German aerospace. He even received the Commander Cross of the German Eagle on behalf of Adolf Hitler. The text points out a really fascinating paradox here. Lindbergh's highly controversial America First, isolationism, and his public statements, they were tolerated by the American elite because this timeline of technical intelligence gathering was simply too valuable. He was their inside man. Act 3. Architect of Operation Paperclip. Fast forward to the collapse of the Third Reich in 1945. The source claims Lindbergh's role transitioned from a pre-war spy to a post-war forensic auditor. This brings us to his involvement in one of the most controversial intelligence operations in history.
While the public saw Lindbergh as just a civilian consultant returning to Europe for the U.S. Naval Technical Mission, the indictment argues a much darker reality. His unacknowledged objective was actually managing the covert absorption of Nazi scientists and aerospace data right into the American black budget. He was functioning as a key architect for the massive hardware harvest of Operation Paperclip.
He was literally getting his hands on revolutionary captured hardware. He looked at the advanced supersonic wind tunnels at Vulcan Road. He analyzed the Horton Ho 229, which was a jet-powered stealth flying wing, and the Comet Interceptor, a rocket plane capable of hitting 600 miles per hour. Absolutely wild stuff for the 1940s. Because he personally audited the greatest laboratories on Earth, from Goddard's early rockets to the most advanced Nazi stealth wings, the text emphasizes a profound conclusion. Lindbergh possessed a totally unique, comprehensive view of global aerospace development. He knew the exact physical and mathematical boundaries of terrestrial manufacturing. He knew exactly, without a doubt, what humans were capable of building at that moment in history.
Act 4, the physical math of 1947.
And this brings us to the final, chilling revelation of the audit, connecting Lindbergh's highly classified knowledge to the historic 1947 wave of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. When these impossible crafts suddenly appeared in the late 1940s, performing maneuvers that would literally crush a human pilot, Major Donald Keyhoe, who was a highly connected military insider and Lindbergh's trusted former aide, began investigating. The source details exactly how this played out. Keyhoe gathered the radar and kinematic data, the raw numbers on their speed, trajectory, and movements, and then he specifically cross-referenced this impossible telemetry with his old boss, Charles Lindbergh.
If you look at this timeline of events, it perfectly summarizes the forensic deconstruction we've just walked through. Lindbergh spent 20 years evaluating every single piece of advanced human aerospace tech on Earth. From his initial audition in 1927 to his post-war audits, he was the ultimate, undisputed authority on the limits of our engineering. So think about what happens when Keyhoe brings him the data of crafts pulling 100G right-angle turns. I want to leave you with this absolutely provocative conclusion straight from the source text. Because Lindbergh had personally audited the absolute limits of human technology, he knew instantly what these crafts were not. Lindbergh's ultimate dark secret wasn't just his deep state ties or his covert operations. It was his absolute, mathematically certain knowledge that what was flying in our skies in 1947 was not built by human hands. It really forces us to ask, what else about our history has been carefully manufactured?